Hello, this morning I wanted to have a play around with some greens that I can mix from the colours in my travel palette. I'm staying on my friend's farm at the moment and I'm surrounded by a huge array of greenery. This is kind of an upside down video today, I'm afraid. I've got my phone balanced on the bread bin on the kitchen table. So this top row that I'm painting now are the 4 ready mixed greens that are already in my paint palette. On your far right then is Issaro's Mindy Green, which has a kind of shimmer in it, and I'll show you that later in the video. And next to that is A. Gallo's Fig Green. The one I'm painting now is Daniel Smith's Undersea Green, which is probably my most used green. And then this one is Rembrandt's Dusk Yellow. I definitely lean towards preferring olivey type greens. I just feel like they're a bit more natural looking. I do need more variety than I've got in my palette as ready mixed greens though. So now I'm trying out some different mixes. This one is a mixture of Schmincke's French Ultramarine and Sennelier's Yellow Light. Schmincke's is the most granulating French Ultramarine that I have, so it'll probably separate out a little bit. I used Schmincke's French Ultramarine again for this next one. This time it's mixed with Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Deep Gold, and it looks like a more blue version of Daniel Smith's Undersea Green. This time I aim for an olive green, which is more like some other brands' olive greens, by mixing Schmincke's French Ultramarine with Mindy Green. Next up I try and mix more of a grass green colour by mixing Schmincke's French Ultramarine and A. Gallo's Fig Green. I use my Holbein Verditer as the blue for the next 2 mixes. This first one is made using the Verditer with Sennelier Yellow Light. And then I mix the Verditer with Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Deep Gold. This makes quite a similar colour to the Schmincke's French Ultramarine and Mindy Green mix on the row above. The next 2 colours are mixes with Quartz Cobalt Teal. This first one is a lovely bright green, which is a mix with Sennelier's Yellow Light. The last one on this row is a mixture of the Cobalt Teal and Quinacridone Deep Gold. It separates out a little bit and makes a really interesting effect, a little bit like the patina on copper. Next is My Merry Blue's Payne's Grey, which is more like a very dark blue, and I mix it with Sennelier's Yellow Light. Then I mix the My Merry Blue's Payne's Grey with Quinacridone Deep Gold. I get a nice dark green that's quite similar to Daniel Smith's Undersea Green, only this doesn't granulate, it's very smooth. Next up I get the brownest of my greens by mixing Daniel Smith's Undersea Green with Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Deep Gold. Lastly, I wanted to make another green using Quartz Cobalt Teal and Sennelier's Yellow Light, but this time using more of the teal in it. Thankfully my friends have got a few white dinner plates which I can use as mixing palettes. And here are the greens up close. As I said, I quite like olivey greens, and I don't have anything resembling phthalo green because I just don't use it very much. I have a wonderful bedroom in the farmhouse which I don't think has changed much in decades, and this is the view out of one of my windows overlooking the orchard and driveway. And here are the greens I mixed alongside the greens of the garden. In the afternoon I tagged along with my friend Richard, who is the farmer, while he was fixing some irrigation pipes. I love travelling around the farm and it wasn't till I made friends with Richard after living in this area for a while that I came to have a real appreciation of this countryside and landscape and of the farming way of life. While I was out, I had the opportunity to take some photos. This morning was a lovely morning, and I decided to do a sketch from the photos that I'd taken the day before. I'd zoomed in to capture this composition, which I quite liked, across the fields. Here's a rough outline sketch in my Talens Art Creations sketchbook. It's not watercolour paper, but I do quite like how watercolours dry on it. For the sky, I mixed some Mimary Blue Payne's Grey with a Gallows and a Tourneau for the darker parts, and some Holbein Verditer underneath. I mixed the green with a Gallows Fig Green and Schmincke's French Ultramarine, and then used some different browns on the left. I'll show all the colours I used later. The distant hills get filled in with Isero Mindy Green and Rembrandt Dusk Yellow. Next I put in the trees, using mainly Rembrandt's Dusk Yellow, but with a little bit of Daniel Smith's Undersea Green. And then I add extra layers to some areas. And here are all the watercolour paints that I've used. I want to add some more textures and contrast, so I use Luminance coloured pencils. I've added the pencil colours I used to the swatch sheet. I'm just showing here the sparkle that's in the Isero Mindy Green paint. It's slightly noticeable in the painting itself when you really look for it. So here's my finished sketch. It's nothing spectacular, but a nice memory and enjoyable to do. Thanks ever so much for joining me for another snippet of my time on the farm. I hope it was enjoyable. Bye!